I know. Director Grant. he's hanging on every word. Okay, go ahead. I'd like to call the meeting of the Sewage Commission for July 13th, 2021 to order. And I would like to acknowledge that we are on the unceded traditional territory of the Comox First Nation. We have with us today, Chair Hillian is out of town today, so I will be chairing the meeting. And we have all directors present, with the exception of Major Stevens, who is on the phone. And we've included Director Hamir today, as she has an interest in the groundwater protection policy that we're going to be discussing later in the agenda. So if we could have an acceptance of the agenda. Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carried. So let's move on to the management report. We have the Sewage Commission management report dated July 2021 for receipt. Any opposed? Okay. Any questions or comments? Okay. Director Grant.
Thank you. Did you want me to go, or did you want to have the rant, or shall I? So I read the minutes of this, and it seems like once again we have run into a stumbling block. It seems like every time we do something on this, we go 2 steps forward and then 3 steps backwards. This report doesn't really tell us a lot of information, so I'd be interested in hearing from staff as to what's truly going on here. Do we have to reroute all the way around? Is there a way to mitigate this? What kind of costs are we now looking at? You know, it says in the report that it could be millions to stay on the same route that we're on. And I guess I'm getting really frustrated and somewhat embarrassed by what's going on here, because every time I look at this, like, how did we not know that there was middens along the foreshore? Like, everyone would know that. And so how could we not have foreseen some of this? And it's just like, you know, if this was a one-off, it would be okay. But this goes right back to the beginning of this entire, it predates this board as to all of the times that we've thought one thing and then found out it was another. So I just like to get some indication of where we're at with this and what's going on.
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. I just would like to reply to the project as a whole. This is perhaps one of the most complex projects the regional district has undertaken in some time. And in many respects, while the water treatment project was complex in its nature, an expensive one too, and equally as important. This conveyance running through communities, running across the IR #1 on the traditional territory of the Comox First Nations, running through rural areas, and the need to replace the existing conveyance along the foreshore in a timely manner are all adding to it. In any construction project, as you advance the project through detailed design, more information comes available and more knowledge is at the table for which must be dealt with or addressed as more information is there for you. The Sewage Commission has high expectations for us to share with our municipal staff members all the information that is available and keep them apprised of the project as it's going on. So I think you're referring to the Management Advisory Committee minutes in which we are informing them of the discussions that we're having with the Comox First Nations with respect to addressing their recently adopted cultural heritage policy and the regional district's commitment to follow and adhere to that. Also recognizing that the knowledge and information available from the province with respect to what is on the ground is very preliminary. And our commitment is to work with Comox First Nations and work with their advisors to better understand that and always be aware of Are there different ways of doing this project or undertaking it in a way that meets the objectives of this commission in terms of providing in a timely manner and on budget and on as well? So we are very mindful of the cost implications, but we are always looking for alternatives that will give you the best value for your money and ensure that we do complete this project on a very timely basis. Please continue to have confidence in the project. We will share with your municipal staff the matters and issues as we go forward and bring to you, the commission, the important decisions. A milestone to this project was the recent alternative approval process, where this community gave its vote of confidence in terms of the borrowing of $53 million that will be required along with the reserves to pay for it. We are very confident that we can live within our means and live within that, and a lot of rationale went into the determination as to what the value is of this project to ensure that we don't have to go back to the ratepayers for approval in the future. So there will be some changes along the way. We will keep you informed and ensure that you have all the information you need to make the right decisions to ensure that we get this done on budget and on time.
The control, what you're talking about when you're talking about rerouting, because the report is really not very comprehensive, and rerouting can mean going all the way around. IR number, is it 2, number 1? If that's the case, I believe that came in at close to $90 million, and we discounted it because it was too expensive and the operating costs were too high. Or are we talking about changing the alignment within that plan and coming up with a whole new alignment? I mean, this has a lot of implications for our community as far as route and as far as time frame is concerned. And so, you know, it's an important issue for us.
Yeah, you're referring to previously, we considered an alternative which would go around IR number 1 completely. It would result in the conveyance line going much further abroad to the north. It would be far more complex in terms of the elevations and such, and for which it had a very much higher price tag and was ruled out as an alternative. What we were speaking about in the advisory committee is an alternative within 200 to 300 meters of Dyke Road. It's a modest change to the alignment. It is not to the extent that was proposed in the alternative that would go around IR number 1. These are very preliminary discussions. We are just exploring these as alternatives, not to be have our sort of head in the sand and go on one alternative route and one alternative only. I can say that upon a modest evaluation of the alternatives, there actually are some advantages and potential cost savings for what we're looking at. But I want to assure you that we're not going there at this time. We're just keeping those options on the table, and we would bring forward to you an alternative route if that is where we go, and the implications in terms of cost, complexity, and timing if there is any change. But nothing is contemplated at this time. It's just looking at alternatives.
So there would be any sense of looking at, you know, at one point we had a concept of possibly phasing this. If this route becomes, you know, if it starts to become that, is there any chance you can go back and look at phasing this so we can look at where that pipe could go in the future?
We're not considering phasing at this time, but again, this is just preliminary, and if there are to begin any consideration given to a realignment or alternatives to the project, we will bring that back for your consideration. This is just preliminary at this time.
I am. Thank you, Chair. I had a question regarding item 5 on the management report, and it's just regarding the Sandy Dump location. It does say that there's a report coming back in the summer, and I just wondered if that's still on track. I assume that would mean August, but just wanted to make sure that was.
Thank you very much. Madam Chair, I'll just ask Chris LaRose to comment on the timing of the Sandy Dump considerations.
Sure. Thanks, Russell, and good afternoon, everyone. So yeah, we did commit to bringing forward at least an update to the commission later this summer, and so we plan to honor that commitment. Progress towards determining a potential location for a Sandy Dump has not progressed significantly, although we are meeting and discussing with the KFN regarding potential very early stages of assessing the potential of siting a facility at the KFN IR2. So those conversations, as I said, are in the very preliminary stages. We did have a fulsome discussion with municipal technical staff earlier this spring, just kind of brainstorming potential locations within either municipality. And one of the key takeaways from that discussion and our subsequent work is that kind of the key challenge associated with having or specifically citing a Sandy Dump station is the length of the lineup that these facilities typically accrue, just given the reality that everybody wants to use them at the same time. You know, this is really only used 2, maybe 3 months out of the year. And everybody's usually coming back from a long weekend or kind of those peak vacation weeks at the same time. So I think that's, it's almost certainly why we've seen, the pre-existing Sandy Dump stations melt away and disappear, is just given the trouble and headache of managing those long lineups. We know that, that one of the closest facilities up in Campbell River experiences some very lengthy lineups, even despite the fact that they have two dump stations adjacent to each other. So that's I would say that's the biggest hurdle we're facing right now, is just working hard to find a location that can accommodate the length of lineup that this type of facility attracts. So I think we're still optimistic that we can find a location, working with the key stakeholders. But like I said, we do commit to coming back with an update to the commission before the end of summer.
Excellent, and I think that was probably a good update in and of itself, so I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Okay, seeing none, I just have a couple of questions. I'm just wondering, with any changes that may have to be made to the routing, if it will have any impact on the liquid waste management plan itself and the community benefits agreement.
Nothing is contemplated at this time that would have any effect on either of those matters. But again, if there are changes to the project scope that would require reconsideration of the CBA or otherwise, we will bring that back for your consideration.
Okay, seeing no further questions. Now, do we have to vote? We haven't voted on that yet. Okay, so we're going to vote on the receipt of the management report. Are there any opposed? Seeing none, it is carried. And moving on to the sewer system conveyance project, Lazo Hill groundwater protection policy for receipt. Okay.
Thank you very much, Chair and Commissioners. And Chris LaRose is on the line to provide a summary of this report and answer any questions that the Commission may have.
Thanks, Russell. Through the chair, hello again, everyone. So this report recommends creation of a Lazo Hill groundwater protection policy. So over the course of the liquid waste management planning process, it became clear that the prospect of a large diameter sewer line, across or under the Lazo Hill area was generating some significant concern from residents, just regarding the potential for contamination of groundwater in the area in the event of a leak. So as that planning process proceeded, progressed, we saw, typically at our open houses, a good portion of the people that were attending those sessions were from the Area B, Lazo Hill area, and so I think it was early last year was the first time we broke out and had dedicated virtual open houses for the Lazo Hill residents. So we've had three of those at this point, and following the most recent set of open houses, we kind of conceived of the concept of embedding commitments that were being made, verbally during these meetings into a formal policy document. So we're recommending that a policy be developed, that staff be directed to develop a policy to commit the CVRD to specific mitigation measures that will be implemented through the conveyance project, both through planning, design, construction, and operation of the infrastructure, to do everything possible to design and build a conveyance pipe that won't leak. So do everything possible through preliminary investigations, assessments, design, setting of standards, etc., to ensure that that what we install in the ground will be robust enough to be, so that it won't leak. And second of all, to implement monitoring and leak detection to allow us to detect any leak in the unlikely event that one were to occur as soon as possible. And third, to have in place the required equipment, materials, contractor relationships, permits, etc., to allow us to respond to repair a leak as quickly as possible in the unlikely event that one were to occur. And finally, that commitments embedded in that policy that would guarantee the supply of clean drinking water to residents in that area. So either through the provision of temporary water, so or potentially up to and including extension of community water in that unlikely event a leak were to occur and that there are lasting impacts on groundwater quality in the area. So we feel that having these commitments embedded in a formal policy document will be key to the success of the negotiations towards statutory right-of-ways that will begin in November, and we're expecting those to last between November to February of this winter. So we're hoping to get the support or direction from the commission today to develop the draft, which we would then bring back with the goal of having it completely reviewed, supported by municipal staff, and hopefully the commission in advance of November, so that policy can be held up as explicit commitment, leading into those, what are likely to be difficult conversations with the property owners in that area. And also that, so not just the putting into writing those commitments at the now, but also embedding those commitments in a policy form that will outlast existing staff as staff turnover and ensure that those commitments are held up over time. So that's it from me. Just happy to answer any questions.
Okay, we have Director Hamir.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to staff for presenting this this policy. Obviously, it speaks to many of the concerns that my constituents have in the Lazo area, and so I just want to thank you for bringing it forward. I think residents will really be looking at this carefully when the actual policy is established. So I'm just wondering, Chris, if between the development and the adoption of the policy, will there be an opportunity for the community to also weigh in on what the policy looks like?
At this point, we hadn't, so we do have our next virtual open house planned with the community. At this point, we've been signaling that will be towards the end of September or early October. So we hadn't, at this point, planned to consult with the community on the specific terms of the policy. However, if that was the direction of the commission, we certainly would be able to entertain options for doing so. I think at this point, having this 3-year planning process behind us, which has included numerous interactions and contact points with the residents, including these most recent 3 dedicated virtual open houses. I think we're pretty clear on what the concerns are. And as you highlighted, they're summarized at a high level here, and we plan to address those in the draft if we're directed to do so.
Okay, and the only reason I say that, I wouldn't want residents to feel that we are developing these sort of, I know it's presented at an open forum here at the Sewage Commission, but I'm going to give you one example of, I think, a point that we may have missed. And that's in the policy in your introduction regarding what the policy will look like. You didn't speak to the distance between where the conveyance pipe will go and the distance of existing wells. And so I'm hoping that the policy will speak to that. But if it doesn't, that was a very big concern that I think you heard, and as did anyone who was on those calls. And I would really like to see that embedded in a policy so that, again, it allays the fears that the residents have of where this pipe is going. And I know you were just in those open houses, that distance hadn't yet been figured out, but having that in writing is something that I think would help assure residents that staff are being very thoughtful about this. So those are some of the kind of points that I think residents might pick up on and would help to create a more robust policy. And I know it's not, I won't be voting on it. I'm not on the commission, but I hope the commission would encourage, some community engagement before the finalization of that policy. So, thank you.
Thank you. So I'm a little bit concerned about the guaranteeing of water, and I totally understand why you want to do that. The logistics seem a little more difficult to me than the way it's written. Like, if I lived out there and I had lousy water, and then all of a sudden you put the pipe in, I'm going to come and say, well, hook me onto water. So I'm wondering how we're going to make sure that are we going to go and test everybody before the pipe comes in so we know what their water quality was to begin with and all that? Because we have concerns about taking water out from our community into the rural areas. And I won't get into the rationale why, but, we do have that concern. And so if it's a last resort and that's what we have to do, that's one thing. But, I can just, I'm not sure how you're going to govern that.
That's an excellent question. So we have a groundwater monitoring program that's under development, actually in implementation at the moment. So it has a number of objectives, but one of them is certainly a key objective is certainly to establish a baseline of groundwater quality in that area. So while we won't be monitoring or establishing a baseline of water quality for every single well, we will have, we're starting to develop a very significant data set for all key kind of water quality and water level parameters for eight wells that are kind of geographically spread out along the potential alignment of the horizontal directional drilled section. So that data will provide, like I said, a very strong baseline of water quality and level information that will be used to compare and monitor for changes during and after construction. So I think in my view, that addresses the concern that you've raised. And then there's the fact that the HDD alignment is running below, is proposed to run below the shallow aquifers and above the deep quadrasands aquifer, which is just an unconfined aquifer in that area that stretches well into area B, like up the peninsula. think there's a total of 1,600 homes that are above that aquifer. So it is unconfined. The water quality, so while we're only focused on 8 on that kind of real-time monitoring and establishment of a baseline on 8 groundwater wells, they are spread out over that area, and our very clear understanding is that that they will provide a baseline of water quality in that general area and not just in those wells, given the unconfined nature of the aquifer.
Okay, well, that was my question. We're just talking about 8 homes, give or take. Is that what I'm hearing? And what would happen if we ran the baseline and these 8 homes don't match up to the baseline?
So the baseline of water quality data will be based on the data collection from those 8 wells, and they are intended to be representative of the groundwater quality in that general area through which the HDD pipe will run. And all indications, while we haven't quite started collecting that data yet, all indications are that the Quadra Sands aquifer is a high quality water source. And like I said, it is unconfined and quite homogeneous in nature through that area. So the perspective and the opinion of our hydrologist is that that sample of 8 that are geographically spread out over the alignment will provide a representative picture of groundwater quality in that area. In other words, that we can draw conclusions regarding groundwater quality at wells that are between, that fall within that general area based on that scattering of 8 wells that will have that detailed analysis.
Any further questions? Oh, I see. Director Minions.
Gotcha. Thank you. Just a quick comment and then one quick question. I'm really glad that this policy will be coming to the board. I think that communication has been done well with the group of owners up at Lazo, with lots of challenges in them understanding the project from beginning to end. So my question, and I apologize if it's in the report there, but will the remediation for those 8 properties that have baseline, if there is water quality issues, be included in this policy, or would that be a secondary policy? And just a comment on, will that be, the groundwater policy be shared with those 8 or 12 homes that this affects, or the group of homes? I would say based on the amount of consultation that was done through the processing quite well, I would encourage or support that going back for one when a final basic copy is available for very small input. I think it would be worth that extra one step, considering how well the consultation was done throughout the process and with such a small target group. But I'm just curious if the policy will include kind of what the remediation would be if the baseline does go down, what would the alternatives be, and will they be very well laid out in that policy?
Yes, so thanks for the question. First of all, the data will definitely be shared with the homeowners and actually be publicly available. So shared individually with each of the 8 property owners, and then made available as an aggregate results for the broader community. So, which is a way to avoid confidentiality issues. So putting that piece aside, so the monitoring is not intended to. So I guess looking forward into the future, so post-construction, as the monitoring equipment is left in place, continues to monitor the groundwater quality. So there is the potential that those wells could pick up. So a review of that data could pick up early signs of a sewage wastewater leak, in which case, obviously, that would raise an alarm and prompt further investigation. However, there is also the potential that other homeowners who did not participate in that real-time monitoring of their groundwater quality could raise a concern, at which point their groundwater could be tested and be shown to contain the presence or proxies for wastewater. And that, given the geographical distribution of the monitoring wells, that could be definitive and lead to the same depth of investigation. Just given that that this is an unconfined aquifer. And then so to the third question, the policy will detail to a certain level of detail what level of preparation and contingency planning for provision of temporary water in that very unlikely event of a leak. So at this point, having not started drafting the document, not yet clear on exactly what level of detail will be embedded in the policy document, but there will be a certain level of detail to provide that sufficient level of confidence that this has been well enough thought out in advance.
It sounds like we're going to have another opportunity to look at this policy once it comes forward. And I don't see any further questions on being cognizant of the time. I think we could move on at this point. So if we could vote on receipt. Are there any opposed to receipt? Okay, it's carried. And there's a recommendation that groundwater protection policy embedding specific groundwater protection commitments to govern the Comox Valley Regional District delivery of the sewer system conveyance project be brought forward for review. Okay, is there any further discussion? Okay, any opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. And we will move on to the sewer system conveyance project path forward update for receipt. Any opposed? Okay, carried.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair and Commissioners. And Charlie Gore, Manager of Capital Projects, is on the line to provide this verbal update.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, CAO. So just an update on the sewer system conveyance project. As many of you are likely aware, we had success with the AAP last week for the borrowing for this project. So now the project is fully funded, which is a major milestone to move us forward towards execution of this project. In parallel with the AAP, we have also secured our owner's engineer. HDR Incorporated are going to be the owner's engineer for this project, and they bring a world of expertise with regards to horizontal directional drilling and pump stations, as well as a really solid understanding of our community through their project director, Walt Bayless, who many of you will remember from previous sewer projects here in the Valley. He used to be with WSP and has moved over to HDR and brings with him a lot of the knowledge that we need to really execute this project well. So in line with the implementation strategy that was approved by the Commission back in April, we are proceeding with the confirmation of the scope of this project and really diving into the details on the Courtney pump station, retrofit versus rebuild, and the specific locations for horizontal directional drilling, entry and exit pits, such that we can bring back that scope for the Sewage Commission to review and hopefully approve in the fall to move us forward towards a design build procurement. So everything is proceeding as per the strategy that you have previously approved, and we're very excited to have our owner's engineer on board and of course be fully funded so that we have confirmation that we keep moving towards resolving the sewer system issues that plague both our pump stations and the concerns of the Willamar Bluffs. So just a verbal update today, but it's no new news other than just to say that we're on track and we're pushing forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. Are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, we should vote on receipt. Any opposed? Seeing none, it's carried. And we have no new business, no media questions. Move termination.